Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Megan, welcome to Coaching Call. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a blast. Because we're going to get to know you, and yes. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
So tell me, where were you born? And the other question with that is, who would you say influenced you before the age of 15?
Oh, gosh. That's a great question. So I am originally from Michigan. I was born in a tiny little town called Hillsdale, South Michigan, and then my family moved us to just outside of where Michigan State University is in a town called Hazlitt. So that's where I grew up. Got all the way to college before I moved on out of the state. So good question. I would say probably looking up to my dad. Actually, my dad was quite the entrepreneur when I was young and had multiple businesses. So I think I got a little bit of that bug to do what I'm doing now from him. So that is where I started.
So did you ever go to work with your dad, or did he work out of the house? Did he work at different places? You said entrepreneur. So there's a lot of people have different ways of seeing an entrepreneur.
Yeah. He had his main business was as an accountant. So he had a private firm. So I definitely would go to his office and hang out with him. I think I even worked for him for a very short period of time in my 20s, getting out of college. And then I think most people kind of do this battle of, you go to college and then you're doing well. And then all of a sudden, like you move back home, and I found myself working for my dad a little bit. But he did accounting. He had, let's see, what else did he do? He did like a golf simulator. Have you ever heard of those where they have in the bars? He was selling those and would take those to trade shows. So we would go do that a little bit. I always thought like he must just be so smart, right? Because he just knows how to like run these businesses on his own. So I definitely got exposure to what he was doing in a small way when I was young.
Very cool. Very cool. So the golf simulator, that's become big.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Him and a buddy got into that. I mean, they don't do it anymore. It was kind of a short-lived thing, but it's interesting to see because clearly that was, I don't want to give away my age, but quite a long time ago, when I was probably 12, 13, 14 in high school, and they still exist today, in, probably a much more high-tech AI way than back then, but it was fun to see him do that.
Very cool. Very cool. So you got the bug, you said. When did you do any entrepreneurial things? Was it in high school? Was it because you went to work with him, right? You went to his office, maybe you even worked for him, right?
Yeah.
Like I myself, I worked for my dad. I think I was 9 when I was cleaning windows at his shop.
Oh.
Right? Every Saturday I would go there and I would sweep and clean the windows, and I would get a little salary, and that was pretty cool for me.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I remember doing anything like big other than I think your typical, kid stuff with babysitting and, working and little kid stuff with selling lemonade and things like that. I always had some side hustles, I think, being young, and trying to get my foot in the door out of college. And I had moved myself to Florida and didn't know a lot of people, but from the actual entrepreneur, like true side of it, that didn't come until later in my life after a 20-year career in hospitality. Probably started around 7 years ago. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
You said hospitality.
Yes. Yeah.
That teaches so much, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I actually have a hospitality degree, which I think is unique in some ways. A lot of people that get into the hospitality industry sometimes fall into it by happenstance. Just a lot of people get involved with waiting tables and the restaurant industry, getting through college. I know this was kind of my husband's story. He, not to talk about him too much, but he also came from the hospitality industry and we met there, but he got a aeronautical science degree and wanted to be a pilot, but things happened, and next thing you know, he's looking for work and bartending, and life takes him in a completely different path, and then it's hospitality. So I've been a true hospitality person, I think, since I was little, honestly. I told you I was from Michigan, and although I have nothing bad to say about Michigan, and there is some really cool resorts up there, but I always found myself just being drawn to wanting to live and work where people vacation, right? That's got to be so great. Like, why would you not want to be there? Which is how I ended up getting to Florida right outside of graduating from college, because I was like, I want to, be where people are that are having fun, that they're having memories. It's warm, it's sunny. Give me the palm trees all day long. And I had that even when I was little. I think my grandparents distilled that in me. They were from Florida, so we would go down as a child and visit them. And I got lucky enough to be in Hawaii one time because we had a relative out there. And so, seeing all that and going to some resorts, I really just was like, this is where I need to be. And then I think once you get in it, everyone is just so friendly. Everyone is having a good time. I won't say it's not stressful. It is a very stressful industry. There's a lot of things that are, hard about that industry. A lot of people just think, well, you just must party all the time. It's hospitality, right? But it's a challenging industry. A lot of, like I said, it's 24 hours. So you're constantly on. I'm working weekends, working nights. There's always things happening. So I've always been that person that loved people and truly comes from that service mentality, which I think also helps me in what I do today.
Yeah. But if you think about the hospitality industry, there's so many different positions that somebody can have in it, right?
Oh yeah.
From the front to all the way to the back. And there's so many in betweens, organizations, organizing events and this and that and the other. And I think that it's interesting because if you think about it, a lot of people think hospitality, they think hotel, or they think bartender. So much more to it, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It covers such a huge gamut. You can be in, like you said, restaurants, hotels, resorts, cruise lines, country clubs. It covers catering companies and event rental companies, DJs. And, I even think some of it goes into senior living, right? Where there's like the new thing with retirement communities. That's almost like a whole nother life after you retire. You get back into having parties and having fun. But a lot of people, I see from the recruiting point of view that are even jumping kind of into that lane. Even into property management, it crosses so many lanes. And like you said, that, it's just not about the general manager and the director of sales and the executive chef. It like encompasses, HR and IT and facility management and, construction. I mean, the list goes on and on about what you can do within that one large industry in different silos.
Absolutely. So your dad influenced you when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
Besides family, who would you say influenced you growing up?
I'm so sorry. Say that again. Who influenced me next?
Yeah, besides your family,
Oh,
your dad.
besides my family. Sure.
Outside of who influenced you?
Yeah. Honestly, I probably the people that I started working with first in hospitality. Like I was telling you, I left Michigan when I was 21, right outside of graduating from Central Michigan University with a hospitality degree. And I immediately took an internship at what was the Amelia Island Plantation Hotel, which is like out on Amelia Island near Jacksonville. Huge, beautiful resort. And I got my feet wet there, started my career, my first time working in a true resort. And I think it's an Omni now, but if anyone, is familiar with that, it's a massive property, lots of land. You need golf carts to get all over the place. And so they had a very specific, well done recreation program, like an actual special events department. So I think, getting out of college and then getting into a situation where I was on my own, away from my family, away from my friends, didn't know anybody, really just getting started and looking up to those that, showed me the ropes, showed me what I could become, and convinced me that, I really was truly in the right place, that I didn't make the wrong decision to follow my heart and, where my life path was taking me and to get involved. So I don't know that I can name anyone specific anymore because it was, again, a long time ago, but I remember, kind of being a part of that pod and just being indoctrinated into what felt like a true family. And honestly, everywhere I went in hospitality, that's really what it is. When you get into a new hotel, and that's really where my career was in hospitality, was these large resorts. I mean, everywhere I found it, I moved a lot, especially in Florida for new opportunities. It was always a family. Once you're in, you just they envelop you into their own culture, and I think that was a huge influence on me from the start in my career.
Nice. So family. So you didn't feel left out, did you? They took you in, right?
Yeah, which I thought, being young, and having parents, I actually have a twin sister. And so, that kind of throws a little bit of a difference in life, that I grew up very attached to somebody, even though we were fraternal, kind of detaching myself a little bit and feeling the need to kind of find my own footing and balance in a completely different state, and then not having that support of the family, having the support and feeling like I could fit in easily within my hospitality family was a really nice and easy transition for me.
Wow, interesting. I didn't know you were a twin.
Yes.
So when you moved away, what did she do? What is she? What was her?
Yeah. So, well, she stayed in Michigan. So like we were talking about Michigan. So we grew up right outside of Michigan State University, East Lansing, a small town called Hazlitt. So she stayed and went to Michigan State University, and decided I was going to leave even the town and go up to Central, which is about an hour and a half away. So, we kind of separated even at that point. I really, I think I needed it. I'm not sure if I could say the same thing as her, but she's definitely a little bit more of, that kind of homebody type that really, values to stick around. And I am a little bit more of that free bird of like, I've got to go see what else is going on. So we separated for college, even though, of course, we were still pretty close and only an hour and a half away. But when I left, she stayed. So we were apart from each other. Oh gosh, I was in Florida 15 years. And before I moved to Charlotte, where I am now. And interesting enough, she, started her family. She got she's a PA, so very different than me in terms of career choices, very medical brain. She is a doctorate, and she teaches now at Wingate University in the PA program there, but very different in our styles of what we were good at, right? You come from like the hospitality, a little bit more of the creative, and then you've got kind of the more medical brain. But when I got to Charlotte, 2014, she actually moved her entire family here as well. And so now after, 15 years of being apart, we are back. Well, we've been back together now for about 12 years. And she still lives about 2 hours to the west of me over in the Asheville, North Carolina area. But, now it's interesting because she has 2 kids. I have 1 son, and they're, I think now 14, 15, and 16. So they're very close in age. And it's been really nice to just, have her and I kind of come back and bond together, even though, we were separated for a while, and in a sense get to raise our own children together.
That's pretty cool.
That's
pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you went into hospitality, did you know that that's what you were going for? Is that what you applied for? Or is it just that you were in college and said, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll go this way. What was that like?
That's a good question. Because I can see, myself and my husband also struggling with this with our son. Like, I don't even know what you want to do yet. Just like as parents are just like, but we don't want to influence you, but we kind of do, right? But in my case, and again, going back to looking at my sister and I, very, very different. She always knew the medical field was hers, and I went into college having no idea what I wanted to do. I think, back now it probably drove my parents crazy, just like it's, Cruise's got time still. But at the time, they were like, oh God, what is she doing? Right. And it took me probably at least a year, almost 2 in college, to really understand that hospitality was even a degree I could get, truthfully. Like I just didn't, for me, I didn't think about that. You just kind of think of the main ones, teacher or doctor or a vet or, accountant or whatever it is. And then I had a roommate actually that also was going to get into the recreation department in hospitality degree. And, she and I sat down and I was like, well, it was like a light bulb that went off in my brain to be like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. How did I not know that this was a thing? That I could actually get a degree in hospitality. In Central, it was commercial recreation specific. But truthfully, once I figured that out, and then knowing that could take me to somewhere that was more vacation-esque. I was considering Arizona and Texas and Florida and, even like the Bahamas, wherever, again, people were vacationing. I just clung to that and was like, okay, I think my parents were finally like, all right, she finally figured it out. Thank God. Right. Even though, maybe not the most lucrative job in the world. I think anything you find a passion for, when you finally figure that out, it really feels good. to do. And it shaped, the next 20 years of my life that I, grew to love, and did a lot and felt very good accomplishing what I did in that industry when I was in it. And truthfully, I'm still in it, with what I do now. A lot of what I work with mainly with the recruiting side, of what I do, but then, on the other side with the career development, a lot of my clients come from the hospitality industry, and it's fun to like really be able to like help them because I understand that industry so well.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you were going to do something
On my own? Yeah. So I think for me, like I said, I spent a lot of time in Florida, mainly in hotels. My silo was in the catering and sales side of hotels. So a lot of event planning, a lot of, I did like hundreds of weddings in my lifetime. And I think that, I absolutely loved it for so long. And then I remember very distinctly kind of hitting just a wall. Like I remember standing in the ballroom where I last worked at the Hilton uptown in Charlotte, and, still loving the people, but I felt like, you know what? I don't really want to be here anymore. Like I'd rather be home. I just felt like I started to do it in my sleep, right? Like I was just like, the magic is gone. I can't, and I knew because of what I did, planning people's, memories and like being such a big part of that. It used to make me so emotional, especially with the social things of what I would do. And, I would just love to be a part of that and see the joy that I was bringing. And I just started to lose that magic of like, I can't stay if I don't want to be here, because then that takes away from other people. So luckily I was quick to recognize that and just like didn't stand in that for too long. And of course, at the time I was like, well, what else can I do? Like this is all that I know in a way. But life has a way of putting things in front of you. And at the time, I actually got reached out to by a recruiter, and the recruiter was looking for a national director of catering conference services for Compass Group, which is also hospitality, but extremely different, in a completely different silo of contract food service, very, very different than being in the hotel world. And, I was like, well, maybe this is what I want to do. And it was a huge leap in promotion and, salary. And, I was going to be traveling a lot. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like exactly what I needed. And, this is it. And I started, and I got about 7 months in and was like, this is not it either. This is not it either. I love the responsibility. The travel was fun, but there was, again, nothing bad about contract food service. It was just, there was a lot less creativity in it. And I just was like, this doesn't feel right. It just not sitting right. And I think people know that, right? Whether, you're feeling really good about it, or every day you're just like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? So after that, I was lucky to kind of like part ways and, on common ground and get some severance. So I had some time to figure it out. But I was kind of lost, and my husband said, why don't you, I'll share your resume with, there's a recruiter that reaches out to me all the time. That she works with Gecko Hospitality, and she can maybe she's got something. And I was like, okay, whatever you think, let's go for it. So she called me and she was like, I don't have anything for you. But I am looking to sell my hospitality portion of my business that was over in North Carolina with Gecko Hospitality. Would you ever consider, being a franchise owner and in the recruiting business? And of course, my brain goes, well, I don't know how to be a recruiter. Like, I'll have to think about that. Let's talk more. But, but at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm thinking I've always had an inkling that I wanted to own a business. I thought it was like, 10 years earlier, I thought it would be an event planning business or a wedding planning business. I would get really excited about that. And then, that just never happened. And again, a little part of me is happy because I ended up kind of like getting bored with that. And so then having this opportunity, kind of present itself, we weren't really ready for it. But that was the tipping point to be like, this is in a way perfect timing to get our toes in with owning a business. And I think that, that was 7 years ago. We had to learn, I say we, my husband eventually was going to, partner with me. He was in food and beverage as a director of food and beverage at a pretty great resort and hotel called the Ballantine here in Charlotte. So I was going to start and he was going to join me at some point when, like I could get my feet under me and we felt like we were in a good place. But of course, life happens and then there's COVID, which is a totally out of left hand, kind of turn of, well, now we just started this business. Chris got, laid off immediately, of course. And so we found ourselves in a position where I guess there is no waiting for you to join me. You're just going to join me. And I don't know how we're going to do this because of course, no one's working and hiring. But somehow, we are still here and doing that piece of the recruiting business together. So I think that's when that bug started. And then of course, halfway through getting my feet wet, became born my own thing with the other side of the career point of view, not necessarily the recruiting side, but the actual idea around helping people actually not just with land jobs, but understand how to go about the job search strategy and resume writing, because I just knew there was a huge gap. So that's kind of where that started. And again, the string of events, I think divine timing is always on our sides if we are patient enough to kind of like look for that.
Yeah. You said something about resume writing. That can actually get you hired faster than others if your resume stands out.
Yeah.
So is that how you help people also with how they write their resumes, what to put in it, what to not put in it? Because a lot of people may put things in it that should not be in their resume.
Yeah. Truthfully, that is why I started Career Blueprint Solutions separately, because being a recruiter and understanding what the hiring manager wants, right? Because as a recruiter, I'm constantly, especially from a third-party agency where we work with all kinds of different types of companies to help them with, hard to fill jobs. And so I was learning all about what the hiring manager, was really trying to look for and what we were looking for in candidates, right? So being a recruiter, you kind of play the agent, the career agent of like, I've got to have a candidate in order to place with my client who's going to pay me. And so I really was like, got my feet wet, learned recruiting, and then realized that I even myself had no idea truly what should go in a resume. And then I learned that through my time and the recruiter's eye, I was like, I literally scan resumes in 6 seconds to figure out, if it's a yes or a no. And there's so many people that don't have that knowledge. And that is where this company was born out of, is that what I remember being taught way back when right? And how to write a resume is just not relevant anymore. And there's so many things. It's not just the resume, it's LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile. It's, understanding your true market value and creating a professional brand. And there's so many things that go into it these days. And when you get into a really competitive marketplace like we are now and have been, outside of a couple years in COVID, it's so important to understand what to put in a resume, why you should have a completed LinkedIn profile that's optimized, and how to truly signal to buyers, right? In a way, which is kind of what we're doing, that you are the person that they're looking for. And there's just so much misconception of like the history of the resume. And now my goal is to teach people, not only to help them write resumes, and help them with LinkedIn and job search strategies and interview coaching and all the things that I've learned along the way from that recruiter kind of insider point of view. But it's to teach them like why it is the way it is and the strategy behind, knowing how to come up with your true market value, and give them honestly the true confidence that they deserve. Because I feel like that is one of the biggest things people are missing these days. Is it's just like it can be a very low energy, demoralizing place to be, especially if you're not if I should say, if you're in a place that you've lost a job or been laid off, the emotional tax that takes on us. I've been there multiple times. That like it's hard. And so there's that piece too, to like truly give people their confidence back, show them that they are valuable, right? And I get a lot of times my clients will, I'll write their resume and I'm like, okay, so first draft, here you go. And they're like, but is that seriously me? Like, I feel like I have imposter syndrome because we just, it's hard for humans in general to have the wherewithal to like look down on yourself from like that higher bird's eye point of view, to be like, this is truly what I'm an expert at. Here's my genius, right? Like, and like they don't understand because you're just in it. So there's a lot of times I think it's easy to just sit in what you do every day and just be like, well, if it's my knowledge that I have, then it's not that special because everyone else has it too. So really kind of helping people define who they are, and forward think around not just what you want to do next, but like, where do you want to go in the future, 3, 5, 10 years, and help them develop that mindset so that they don't have to be in this position again when they come to me.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you're helping them work out their LinkedIn, because a lot of people don't understand the value of LinkedIn. It's not Facebook. It's a higher level, right?
Yeah.
So you put your resume on Facebook, you put your resume on LinkedIn, and your profile really speaks volumes to why would somebody even want to connect with you, right?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And I love the future thinking, right? Future thinking of where do I want to be 5, 10, 20 years from now? Because a lot of people are in the moment, and I appreciate being in the moment, but I also appreciate that the moment, everything you do today is going to lead to your tomorrows. So why don't we think about our tomorrows now as well? Be in the moment. Sometimes, because you're so caught up in all the day activities, but sometimes you need to sit down and say, hey, you know what? What do I want 3 months from now? What do I want 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And sometimes a lot of people will do that at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But they don't do it consistently throughout the year.
Right.
And I think that can help some people understand the value of what am I doing today that's going to get me there? Because otherwise it's just the same. It's Groundhog Day, Groundhog Day, Groundhog Day.
It is.
Instead of building for tomorrow, right? But we
Yeah.
can't build tomorrow if we're not aware.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is like one of the number one things I do when I work with people one-on-one is we start with that. We start with truly understanding, what you want to do, um, and focus on that, and then say, okay, from there, where do you want to go after that, right? Um, if we're if we're just kind of sitting in the past, then we can't be talking to anybody. And I think that's usually a big misunderstanding too, or just like you don't think about that. Like when people try to be like a generalist and everything to everybody because they think, well, I don't want to miss out and I want to be able to, not pigeonhole myself into something. And I'm always like, it's not about pigeonholing yourself. You can be broad, but if you truly don't even have an idea of who you're talking to, like who is your audience, like how are you defining what you want to do? And if you can't do that, then you're not solving anyone's problems, right? And so we sit down and really spend a lot of time just understanding your strengths and just understanding, like your differentiator, like what makes you valuable, like what have you saved your company, whether it's like, like what would their loss be if they lost you, like, and let's define that in almost like a numerical way, right? So that we can really truly look at who you can build your business case around. And once you can define and have that target acquisition, that's what I kind of call in that my T.A.P protocol. It's like, like start there. You've got to have an audience. You got to know who you're talking to, because if you don't, then you will never be like, you will have no signal. There will be no signal, and you can't define anything, and you can't know whose problems you need to figure out how to solve and where to draw those lines of comparison, because it's honestly that is what people are looking for. The hiring managers, they do not care that you started as a bartender, because you can't get to be the regional director of food and beverage without that. So it's really defining what's relevant, what have you done in your history, even if it's not the last job you had, that truly defines the problems that you can solve. And so we're trying to flip the switch of being a memoir in history to metric driven results in solving problems. And that's what I try and do with all the people that I work with. And in general, my messaging out there to help people is stop, living in your past and start to think future forward.
Yeah, I love that. When you made me think of something that everybody's replaceable.
Yeah.
Right, in every industry. But as somebody who's getting into the industry, what you need to do is make yourself so hard to be replaceable, so that therefore they really consider before replacing you. Because if they replace you, they may have to hire 3 people, right? To do what you normally do. And a lot of people, young people, don't realize this. They think it's just a job, but it's not just a job. It's your choices. Because when you show up for a particular job, and if you overdo what you're asked to do, it's hard to replace you. It's hard to.
Yeah.
Before let me share this video with you. Thank you.
Unify leadership. This is what we do, man. This is what we live. This is our calling. And you walk away with a working document, something that you could hold, that's intangible, that you could utilize, man, wherever you are on the journey. This is not for one specific element. This is for real leaders to grow that leadership acumen, to be better in the home, be better in your community, be better in your workspace, Be better in your organization, your teams, man.
If you feel you have no value after day one, we'll give you your money back.
Indeed. 100%, bro.
That's how we stand behind what we believe in.
Raise that bar, leaders in rhythm, born to spar. Raise that bar, leaders in rhythm, born to spar. Steady and true, the sound of the few that follow new. Strong alive, this is the beat where leaders thrive. Unified leadership.
We are unified, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's happening in May, right? May 15th through 17th. If anybody's interested, just go to unifiedleader.com/lab, right?
Very cool.
So Megan, you have been telling us the important things of, and I named this episode, Fix This and Opportunities Find You.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I mean, honestly, it's so true. Like you, I love that. And I literally wrote down like 7 different things, right? And when I think about that, because I'm just like, okay, so like fix this. And I wish I could say it is one thing, right? I wish I could be like, just fix your resume, do these 3 things and you're good as gold, right? But unfortunately, that's just not the case. I think, the 2 main things that are crucial if you are truly in the job search arena right now is the resume and is LinkedIn. As a recruiter, we're going to find you on LinkedIn probably before we even see your resume. Or if you're applying and I find your resume, I will immediately try to find you on LinkedIn. So those that think, that's like you were saying, how it's not important. It is. It's very important, and I don't think, there's 2 different ways to think about it. If you really want to work on your professional brand, when I say that, defining that a little bit just means like you actually have a voice, right? Like you're a thought leader in your industry, you have an expertise, you want to be a name people recognize, then there is something very specific that you have to do. And we can talk about that kind of, because that's like, a separate thing. But LinkedIn in just general, it's not that you have to be on there talking all the time and posting. That's not really how you get found. That's how you signal to people and attract, opportunities that you want to you. But if really you're just trying to get a recruiter to find you or look like you are very professional, which is, huge because of the competitive nature of the market that we're in, it really just takes a completed LinkedIn profile. And when I say that, have a banner, a graphic banner behind you. LinkedIn has plenty that you can just put up. I personally like to make them for my clients, and I can just do that really quickly in Canva, because I think that if there's a signal that's got your name, your email, and like again your value proposition, like what you are known for in that industry, people don't have to go looking for it, they just see it. It looks very professional. Then you've got a really great professional picture. I still see people with sunglasses on and their dog, and I'm just like, oh man, or it's just like it's not centered, or it's like their full body, and I'm like, okay, I know that what you look like is not the point. The fact that it looks professional, I can just see your face is what you need. The headline is probably one of the biggest pieces that is crucial. A lot of times I find that people are just like, I am the general manager of the Holiday Inn, right? And it's like, okay, well, but that's not really telling, because that I also see, because it's probably, that's what I see in like your latest job. Your headline really should be, again, goes back to that kind of value proposition statement. If you think about that, like what you do, what you're an expert at, who you do it for, so your target, and then maybe one of your largest achievements. So that it signals, that again, you're not just pigeonholing yourself into this, I'm just this one job. I can do all of this, right? And this is who I do it for. And that helps attract us to you. The about me section, make sure that that's filled out. That's kind of like if you look at a resume to a cover letter, that's where you kind of get to be a little bit more of like a personality. So I always encourage people to that's where you can list your accomplishments, but also have your story there, because the human part of it is also important if we start to really, look further in. Job history filled out, obviously, education filled out. Make sure your latest resume is uploaded on the back end under your profile. So it's simple things, but you'd be surprised how many people, just don't even have a picture, or it's so outdated. And I get a lot of, well, Mom, Megan, I just hate social media. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. But it's not this. I mean, we're not like Facebook, Instagram is just different. This is literally your dating profile for your career, right? Yeah, it's important. Mm-hmm.
And you're right about the images, because there's a lot of people out there without an image, or they have an image with other people in it, so you don't know who it is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's this? The one in the middle, the one on the left, the one on the right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've even gotten requests from people. And so how do we differentiate from somebody who is a legitimate recruiting agency to somebody who just wants to sell us their nonsense? Because that's common, right?
I know. And that's really sad, that's happening, that we even have scams in the job, search and realm, as well as the rest of our lives. You just have to do your research. I think that just people get excited when they get interviews or things that are, they're like, oh, somebody's interested in me, right? That's like a boost of confidence. You're like, oh, somebody wants to talk to me. They think I could be really good at something. And then the rest of your brain goes, yay. And then you forget, okay, no. Just like the rest of the world, we have to be constantly focused on finding the, legitimacy of who you're talking to. And I know that it's hard because some of these companies even have, a website and a profile, but, you got to do the due diligence of looking at, the reviews and the Glassdoors, and, just ask people. I always tell people, as a recruiter, I would tell people, make sure you're talking to 2 or 3, right? Make sure that you're in couple people's back pockets, because, I only work on what I'm working on now. So if you're not an exact fit at the moment, that's hard because I can't help you. So, use recruiters for knowledge too, and find out should somebody be asking me as the candidate for money to help them from a recruiter, standpoint. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Please don't. And it's the client from a third party agency. It's a recruiter from an actual company that's an employee there, right? But you as a candidate should never be asked, to pay a recruiter. That's just not how the industry works. We make a commission off of, the placement in the third party world of recruiting. But I'll be honest, before I started working with Gecko Hospitality, I had no idea. Truthfully, before getting called by that recruiter with Compass Group, I don't recall ever being asked or reached out to. So I'm a culprit of what I tell people to do, that I didn't think about it. I didn't have any experience with it. When I first even thought about what is recruiting, I had a few friends that I knew that were in the recruiting industry, but I was just like, what is that job? What happens? And so I think, a lot of people don't understand how it works. They just think, oh, well, if you are looking for, a job and I can put my name in the hat, then like you must be able to get me a job. And I'm like, I would love to. I mean, if that's the way it worked, believe me, like it would be amazing. But that's not the case. It's really about relationship building and, not knowing what our candidates are looking for and truthfully understanding, not just slinging people around and being like, well, I got this job and I got this job. But like for me and our team and, with Gecko, it's like we are very relationship based because we truly care about truly uncovering like what it would be the best fit. Like, what do you want to do? Where is that, that compensation range, and understanding that, we always want to have their best interests in mind. And so, I feel like I've gotten off topic of your scam question, but like, yeah, it's, the legit ones I think are pretty obvious. So if you're really on the fence, if your radar and your instinct and your gut is telling you, I'm not really sure, really do the due diligence, talk to people, find out. It's honestly not that hard to figure out. And it can be, like a disappointing at times to find that out, but it's important. It's important to stop that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, listen, it's people who are looking to change maybe their dynamics of where they're currently at and where they want to be, right? So once again, we go to future thinking, right? Because when you were sitting in that ballroom and you just finished the wedding and you go, do I belong here?
Yeah.
And you had that discussion with yourself and the answer was no. And then, so what do I do next? Right.
Yeah.
And so and that's where people are vulnerable sometimes, because if they talk to the wrong people, they're going to tell them what's next without necessarily having their best interest in mind. Right.
Yeah.
So it's important. It sure is. So before we go, tell us what somebody can expect when they connect with you. I'm going to put your information across the screen, and you have about a good minute, and just tell us what somebody can expect.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've probably talked about both businesses, so I kind of want to just give a quick shout out to both. So if from a recruiting point of view, I do, like I said, I work specifically as a franchise owner with Gecko Hospitality. We are a recruiting firm that's specific, like I said, to the hospitality industry, although that can mean lots of different things. So don't just think hotel and restaurant. I particularly work with the North Carolina and the Missouri markets. But if there's anyone out there that's listening, that is not in my markets, geckohospitality.com is a great place to go and get connected with a recruiter and with a partner within your territory to find out. And also on the client side, if there's anyone that needs that recruiting help, to uncover and that talent, then we definitely can help. On the other side, my personal side of Career Blueprint Solutions, anyone that's really just curious about, the future forward thinking, like we've talked about, of how can I position myself? How can I signal myself? My thing is all about teaching people. And clearly I do the work. I do the resume writing. I do the LinkedIn optimization. I do the keyword mapping and the writing of the cover letters and helping with job search strategies. So don't think that like I'm just going to teach you how to do it. But my main goal is truly to get people to understand, that if they can figure out their true market value and position themselves in a way that signals, you'll never have to do the job search again. Like you'll just have opportunities that come directly to you, which I think in a way, is like everybody's dream, because nobody likes to job search. And it's, like I said, it can be very hard. So refining your signal is my goal with anyone that I work with, even if it's just, Can you do a resume review? I'll do that. I work with college grads. If you just need like that, like launch pad off of like, I'm just getting started, that one pager, I can help you with that, all the way up to I'm an executive C-level and I need a full strategy plan. I can help with that as well.
That's awesome. And the website again?
www.careerblueprintsolutions.com, or if it's the Gecko, it's geckohospitality.com.
Awesome. Yes. I got to tell you, you definitely enlightened me for sure on the hospitality end of things. And there's so many different moving parts in that. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you found your true calling, right? After all these years of being helping people along the way. And now you're doing it with a passion again, right? That you had lost at one point and then you regained it.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you. You're absolutely point on with that. I do feel very lucky, because again, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, would you ever own 2 businesses, be in recruiting, be a career, development? I call myself, a career alchemist, if you can, or an architect, like nobody, nobody would have thought that of me. And now I absolutely found my purpose, like you said, and I love what I do. And helping people really discover their true power and that confidence that we all have within us. You just have to find it, and how to is really a great thing for me now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Truly, truly appreciate you. Love to have you back on some of my other shows because yes, I do have 10 shows.
Sure. Yes. Very busy man. I see you everywhere.
It's all live, so that's the good and benefit of being live. I don't have to edit anything.
Yeah.
So it's all good, right? So thank you again for being here. Everybody do me a favor, share the show with somebody who needs to hear today's message. Do so and connect with Megan. She's a phenomenal, incredible human being who actually cares.
I do.
So that's important too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This has been a true pleasure. I'm very grateful for the invitation to be on your show.
Yeah, let's do it again. All right, everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Sounds